Hey, yo, what is going on, you guys? Tucker here with a brand new video for you guys today. Today is going to be the first video of a brand new series I'm going to be talking. It's called Tucker Takes, where we're going to be going and looking at the meta of this past week, how the new card impacted the meta and what decks the new card was used in, as well as spotlights for the upcoming week, my thoughts on the new card coming out, as well as variants that are coming out this next week. So we're going to go through, we're going to break down, we're going to be using Untapped, we're going to be using SnapFan to showcase all of this. But yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so first and foremost, here's how we're going to look at everything. First, we're going to look at the decks that are the most popular right now. We're going to look at their win rates, what makes them popular, and all that. We're going to go through pre-infinite and post-infinite. Of course, we're going to start with pre-infinite, of course. This has been the first week of the season, so not everyone is infinite, which, of course, there is no rush to be infinite whatsoever. But we're going to talk about some of these decks and maybe why they're so popular right now with what's going on in the meta, with the OTA. And who knows, maybe tomorrow with the patch, it could shake everything up, which hopefully it does. First and foremost, we have Lockdown over here. This is like the typical Lockdown patch we've seen quite a lot. We thought it was going to be completely changed, of course, with War Machine, which War Machine had its very, fun week with a new card, It gets spiked play rate, and you just see it everywhere. But honestly, there's no Professor X list, which is a little interesting. Instead of like the Professor X slot, you're using more like a Vision. You still have the Shang-Chi, you still have the Jeff, you still have the Storm. So you still have those packages. You aren't really running Omega Red, but you're running your Jessica Jones as well. But this is, of course, it's got a 58% win rate with over 1,600 games, which is pretty solid. Decent popularity, too. Your cubes, of course, in like this situation, you're going to want to like snap before you're doing some of these control things opposed to boomer snapping in order to maximize your cubes. It's almost averaging 1 cube a game, which is pretty good, which either means your opponent's retreating or you're getting your 2 cubes, because control gets a little interesting. It's not as easy to steal 4 cubes as you would in some other archetypes, but it's still pretty solid. Of course, you have Hela Tribunal. This is another one of those decks which doesn't have as high as a win rate. This one, of course, Showcase 2 has less games and is incorporating the new card Red Hulk as well. Which this deck list does die to Alioth on the Invisible Woman or onto the Supergiant, which is a little interesting, but you're getting your combos down in such a way where you're able to just play Hela out at the end, or if you're not able to get Hela, you're hiding your big combo with your Iron Man, Onslaught, and Tribunal behind Invisible Woman, which also tends to do really well. But that's your main thing there. You can either be discarding here, or you could just be playing your cards out. Just kind of depends on your matchup and everything, too, and if your opponent is running Alioth. And, of course, we have the Toxic Surfer list, which has been everywhere as well. 18,000 games, by the way. This deck list is really good because it's really flexible. And there is only one Series 5 card in this list, which also makes it good. So if you don't have Sebastian Shaw, which was also in Spotlights this week, which is another reason why people have opened Spotlights as well. You're not seeing a whole lot of Cosmo right now. You're not seeing a whole lot of Enchantress right now. So you're able to just go big. You have the Silver Surfer line, or you have the Hazmat line. Either one of those can really tend to go really, really well to either outpower your opponent or to stay just above power because you're negating all of their power. Now we're moving into B tier. B tier, we have a typical Shiina package, which this is crazy. I don't know why this deck is the most popular deck, maybe because it has the most games under its belt. Which in all seriousness, if we click on this here, and there are better lists, of course. So, like, some of the typical lists, as you see, like, is the one over here, still only has a 48% win rate with 300 games. You probably would swap the Infinite for Red Hulk, or if you don't have Red Hulk, you would keep the Infinite in there. But I like the Kyera package that's actually showcased here on the right more than the original list. Of course, it does have a higher win rate and less games played, but you're averaging 1.3 cubes, which is awesome. And then we have some other ones here, too. The main cards, you're, like, flexing out in this situation, which running Leech, you don't necessarily need to run Leech, so that's a little interesting. Same with this one on the right. You don't necessarily have to run Moon Girl, but I guess it's a little cheeky to be able to get 2 She-Hulks out potentially as well. But like the main difference between like these two, as you can see, is the second Shiina actually is running Misty Knight instead of Shocker. Shocker's good to be able to discount some of these bigger cards, but in all seriousness, the combo gets a little clunky here with the Shocker. All right, our next deck we have in B tier is going to be Tribunal. Tribunal is another one on this list, which is similar to that Hela Tribunal package. As you can see, it's pretty flexible if you don't have all the cards. Super Scroll's in a good spot right now, especially if you're facing a lot of Tribunal yourself, in order to get more Iron Mans or Onslaughts for your own side of the board in order to win games. Of course, this doesn't have a crazy win rate as well because it is pretty combo heavy, which is why you have Mr. Negative into this deck as well, in order to, in case, I don't know, I guess in case you don't get your flat Tribunal package, it allows you to do your Iron Man, Mystique, a little bit more and spread your power that way, because your opponent's going to be expecting the Tribunal, so you can kind of maybe just overload 2 lanes instead of having to win all 3 lanes pretty much with Tribunal. So that gets a little interesting there. Hope Summers, this is actually Silky Smooth. So like it's not labeled here Untapped as Silky Smooth, but this is the Silky Smooth list that Lambie also pumped out and it's been doing really well. So he's got 5,600 games. You're flexing in Red Hulk instead of Dr. Doom or Alioth, like you may have in your original package. And you're incorporating Hope Summers and of course, returning Elsa at 3 cost to allow you to be able to get some of these cards out early. You play Hope Summers and then another card on her in 4. You can get Red Hulk down on 5, which is freaking awesome. But you're pretty much kind of dodging priority anyways, or at least you used to dodge priority anyways, not trying to get your Kraven too big, not trying to get Angela too big, so you can then rock out a Shang-Chi a little bit later. But this deck, of course, is all reliable and really, really popular with 5,600 games, and bodes really well. 57% win percentage with 5,600 games is really good. Surfer. So we have another iteration of a Surfer list. This is using Baron Zemo, of course. With Baron Zemo, it allows you to pull one of your opponent's card, which discounts Mockingbird here, which also you're doing your Mockingbird package with the Broods and the Absorbing Man. And you're dropping some raw power, honestly, with Gladiator. You have Hope Summers, so potentially even getting a Sarah out a little earlier, potentially, or just to pump out as many cards as possible if you don't draw Sarah. And Surfer's in a good spot right now. Not a lot of Shadow King. There is still Shang-Chi running around rampantly, but not a lot of Shadow King to kind of like negate your effects from the Surfer interaction or from your Forge, which is really, really solid. Of course, we have Junk. Junk is in a really good spot right now. Pre-Infinite and Post-Infinite. It's one of the most popular decks actually in Post-Infinite, which we'll be going over here in a little bit as well. With this iteration, too, you are using Professor X again, which, Professor X really hasn't seen a lot of play rate since War Machine came out, even though War Machine, counter Professor X, but you have to play him at a certain specific time to be able to get the maximum value against that Professor X, which is really interesting. But you got 1,300 games, almost a 58% win rate, almost averaging 1 cube. It goes put in perspective how actually good Cannonball is. Cannonball is definitely one of the more underrated cards from last season, which people probably skipped out on because we weren't really raving about it because we were trying to just destroy cards to be able to get the rock, which honestly Cannonball is just better to disrupt your opponent and knock away their big powered cards so you can win a lane with Cannonball. So it's really good. This list is awesome. Daredevil gets some value too. You're either going to be playing Annihilus, Professor X, or Hobgoblin. You got 3 different cards to be able to play there on turn 5. Potentially even Cannonball if you want to as well to set up a later turn interaction. But this is also really, really solid. Really, really spicy too. Phoenix Force, of course. One of the most combo-heavy decks in the game. But this one right here is the package I've been seeing. I've been seeing some people, instead of running Zola, they're running Alioth instead. With Alioth to kind of just make sure they lock down a lane, make sure that they just win, because they probably are going to have priority with Human Torch being pretty big, or potentially even with the Multiple Man being everywhere and pretty big as well. The Shuri package, if you do not hit your combo with your Multiple Man or your Human Torch for Phoenix Force, you just get 12 power Nimrods and you just Venom and Deathlock, or you can Ghost Spider Carnage and then Venom or Deathlock. So you get just your power spread out all sorts of different ways, and it works out really well for you. Board space, of course, gets a little bit interesting with this deck here if you have like a Multiple Man everywhere. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how this phases out. But like if you have the cards and you can hit the combos, this deck goes crazy. Jeet also has a fantastic written, like pretty much paper essay, whichever you like to call it, book on Phoenix Force, which you can find in Lambie's Discord, which can also showcase, the best lines to do with Phoenix Force because he's a Phoenix Force master. Of course, we have a different type of Hela deck here. So this is with Corvus Glaive. You got a bunch more 2 Series 5 cards in here, or 3 Series 5 cards with Jeff, actually. This is another one of those decks where you're trying to discard cards to be able to Hela them later. Corvus allowing you to get that extra energy as well to play down a Sandman, so your opponent can only play 1 card from turn 5 through turn 6, which is pretty good, a nice ramp. You also have Wave in here to be able to get some of your bigger cards out early if you want to as well. Incorporating a Red Hulk to just have some more firepower to lay down on the board too. Another great hit for discard, so Hela can bring down later, so your opponent doesn't necessarily know what's going to happen. Of course, your Red Hulk does not get its power boost because it's not in your hand anymore if it does get discarded. But let's say they skip turn 1, turn 2. That is a, 19 power Red Hulk coming anywhere. Because, with Hela, it's RNG and everything too. But another just great list to kind of have. Another alternate. Sandman, of course, if to get maximum value out of Sandman, you do need to ramp him out early. Playing a Sandman on 5 kind of hurts. Of course, it's archetype dependent. So like if you're facing Bounce and you play Sandman on 5, they don't know you have Sandman. That's really going to help you win games. But this is a very flexible deck. A lot of 6 costs, a lot of 5 costs. It's like just a new aged Sandman. So Thanos is no longer in A tier since his nerf with the OTA, with Time Stone becoming only affecting Thanos to make him cost 1 less for the next turn, and Thanos always starting in your hand like Quicksilver. Granted, even though Thanos doesn't have that same ability again, I mean, he still draws a card with Time Stone. Almost a 60% win rate with this list over here. The thing is, you just have a lot of Series 5 cards in here. You got Blob, you got Mockingbird, you got Kyra, you got Hope Summers, you got Red Hulk, you got Scar, you got Thanos. So it's a very expensive card list if you don't have every single card. But Thanos still, like, if you get the draws with Thanos, you're just going to win because you just have so much power everywhere. And with Hope Summers, you have a ramp. With Wave, you have a ramp. It just gets crazy. So, like, this list still works. Thanos just isn't as crazy as he once was before with the Time Stone interaction, but you can still drop a lot of power. I mean, with Thanos, all these new cards pretty much going to Thanos. Maybe not U.S. Agent, but I jest. And, of course, with the death of Thanos, which, of course, you saw in the last night, isn't actually the death of Thanos, but Loki always comes back. And Loki's in a really good spot here, especially with all the milling and all the cabling. So, like, if you lose your cards because you've been milled out, you have Thanos or you have Loki in your hand, you just get your opponent's cards instead. And then, I mean, you may not be drawing any more cards, but if you have all those cards in your hand, it really doesn't matter because you can still play a game. You can play your opponent's combo. You can draw their cards because they've been milling you. And it just adds a lot of value here. We got Jeff in the list now. You have Elsa. You have Cable, of course, to mill your opponent as well. Buffed Angela, so like it's pretty flexible here. You only have 3 Series 5 cards. You have Elsa, Hope Summers, and Loki, which is pretty still solid. And I mean, I guess 4 with Jeff too. But like 55% win rate, but it's like Loki's win rate would be higher if the deck wasn't actually just as difficult to use. It's still very fun, and it's in a good spot in the meta right now. We got Galactus. Honestly, I've not been seeing a lot of Galactus, but this is like taking advantage once again of your junk list. Clogging your opponent up to be able to play Galactus on a lane where they're completely clogged and they can't really do anything about it. Or just, you know, if you don't draw Galactus, your opponent's clogged, and you Goliath up wherever you're going to just win. And you have Sentry, you have Annihilus, you have your Goblins, you have Ravonna to make your Goblins cheaper, to be able to set up some of these better interactions later. Making use of Selene, which is interesting. Selene's not necessarily a necessity here, but it does allow your Hood and your Goblins to get -3 power. If you hit a Jeff, it's kind of sad. You hit a Ravonna, it's kind of sad. Eliath, still pretty sad too. But this list like clogs in such a good spot right now. If your opponent can't play cards, you just win. So that's why like the cube rate isn't like super crazy, because like you have to snap before you clog in order to get maximum value out of here, or you're only going to get like a 1 cube retreat. War Machine. So the interesting thing about this list, okay? So War Machine is a solid card. Nothing crazy. But like with this list, you're pretty much just doing the Black Knight package. And if you whiff and you don't have your discarded combo, you're just playing your War Machine down in order to play Infinite or Giganto or Cole pretty much wherever you'd like. You can protect them in the Goose Lane, which is 2. You have Ghost Rider, of course, if you do discard stuff. So you can drop your Ebony Blade, which is one of your big cards, and then Ghost Rider another card back, which is awesome. And with Zabu, you can play your Ghost Rider into a Goose Lane, so your opponent can only Shang-Chi, your big card that you Ghost Rider back, if they also have a Zabu, or if they, I guess, played a War Machine to be able to play into their Goose Lane. So you get a lot of like tech options here to allow you to kind of just like scale over your opponent. This deck showcase only has 130 games, which is a little low. But if you can hit all your lines, Black Knight is so very combo heavy, kind of like Phoenix Force. So War Machine allows you to be able to cheat out those lines. So like even if you're playing War Machine on 4, you can play Maul and Cole pretty much wherever you'd like, which is pretty solid. You may not be able to play Infinite down, but like you could probably Lady Sif Ghost Rider your Infinite too. So it's going to be interesting just to see like the flexibility of this list. And War Machine allows you to kind of get some more value with Black Knight. So I think this is probably more of a staple home for War Machine, opposed to just like always a control this kind of thing. And then of course we got Mr. Negative. So this is going to be a negative Surfer list. So we had a negative Tribunal list, negative Surfer here. So your win rate's not that high with Mr. Negative, of course. Because your only card to enable you to be able to play a lot of these cards out a little bit later is going to be Mr. Negative, opposed to having a Sarah option as well. You do have Zabu, which Zabu allows you to get Wong and Mr. Negative down, but that's pretty much it. So like you can steal cubes of this list because your opponent always has to wonder what actually got hit with Mr. Negative and what cards you just have in your hand from the start of the game. So it's a little interesting. It's nothing like super crazy. But if you get your combo here, like some of these other decks, like the Black Knight and like the other Tribunal, like the other Hella deck, like the other Phoenix Force deck, it hits. And like you have the Surfer package too, in case you don't get the Mr. Negative. And you just spread out your love. You just spread the love out everywhere. You can have your Brood, you can have your Wolfsbane, you get the Mystique down with the Zabu early. So like it can hit, but of course it's another just combo heavy deck. So I'm mainly going through like tiers A and B because those are like the decks that have the better win rates at the moment too. For a different video, if you guys like, I could go through an entire list, A through D or whichever, if you guys wanted to see what all the deck types people are playing, like with win rates and everything too. But tonight, I'm just showcasing like the main ones a year. I think I went through almost like 10 last time, and I went through about 7 here. And we're going to give it like a general synopsis of like what I've been doing and stuff too. And then we're going to move on to cards of the week. All right. So, of course, this is post-Infinite now. The most popular deck right now is going to be Junk, which is crazy, seeing how it was interacting pre-Infinite to post-Infinite. And you're seeing a lot of mirror matches with this post-Infinite. Instead of the original package, it did not have Alioth in it. You have Alioth in it now, and you have Hazmat. Hazmat to work with your Debris to get your maximum clog over. You have Viper as well to be able to send over rocks, to be able to send over your Void, send over a Hood. And it gets a little cheeky there. Of course, this has almost a 1 cube because your opponent, more than likely, post-Infinite is going to be retreating. And you're just setting up your board to clog your opponent. You, of course, have the Widow's Bite as well from Black Widow to make sure your opponent does not get to draw any cards. So you have a lot of Disrupt in here. You have your Hazmat. You have your Nebula. Your opponent has to always worry about Nebula getting too big, so they have to play on that lane so you can offset other lanes to be able to get your Void over for Sentry and stuff too. And you have Alioth to win you lanes, as well as Cannonball to knock some of their big cards off lanes, which at this point, if they're clogged, it's going to turn into a rock. So you're going to be able to get that Cannonball interaction you were actually looking forward to. Then, of course, we have the Toxic Surfer list, which is very popular right now as well. It's popular in pre-Infinite and in post-Infinite. So it's still a combo-heavy deck, but it's got multiple lines over here. You got the Hazmat line, you got the Shaw line, you got the Surfer line, you got the Absorb Man Brood line, so you can just rock out power in all sorts of different ways. You have magics to extend your game if you don't get your combo early, or if you want to, change a location that you don't like. This deck just hits because there's so many different lines, and like I was saying earlier, Shadow King is not a thing. You're not seeing a lot of Shadow King right now, so you're able to just ramp out additional power for a lot of your cards. Maybe your Shaw gets Shang-Chi'd, but they're not going to Shang-Chi and Shadow King your other cards, right? But yeah, that's another reason why this deck's so popular. It's very flexible. Bunch of different lines you can hit to either be offensive or be defensive. And then, of course, Sandman. I was talking about Sandman earlier. So, like, Sandman's in a good spot if you can get him out early. I still don't like the idea of getting Sandman out on 5. I think getting him out on 4 is where you get to maximize your value because it's 2 turns your opponent has to deal with for Sandman too. And then, of course, if you aren't doing, like, a Wave Electro route, I mean, you have the Corvus route, which you're discarding stuff, which allows you to Hella. So if you were to get Sandman hit by Corvus and another like 5 or 6 drop hit by Corvus, and then you play Hella, you're not playing Hella until turn 5. So maybe in that situation, it's okay to have Sandman out because you're playing a card with Sandman, and they're going to a random location. So I like that interaction, of course. But other than that, you have those 2 lines. You're discarding stuff, or you're just waving stuff out to be able to get a Doom out early, or to be able to get a Red Hulk out early, maybe even a Vision out. Who knows? So there's like 3 different ramp cards that you're using in this list. And the cool thing about like Sandman is like Sandman with Jeff. If you are playing Corvus, or if you're playing Electro and you have Sandman down, let's just say, you can still play a 5-drop and Jeff out on turn 6 because nothing limits Jeff from being played. Kind of like the War Machine interaction. If you were to play War Machine after a Sandman, you'd be able to play whatever you'd like because the way War Machine interacts with the text, which is really cool. And like I was talking about earlier, Loki. So like mill decks are a huge thing right now. Post-Infinite, you're seeing Loki doesn't have as high of a cube rate, and its win rate is much lower. I think Loki still has a better home in Conquest. Maybe after the patch tomorrow, or there's going to be a bunch of changes, and Loki comes back out and is more predominant in the metagame post-Infinite as well. I just like it more in Conquest, stealing your opponent's deck because you're not drawing your combos in case you break your hand. It is still good against the mill decks right now in case, you have no other cards to draw. Loki can give you your opponent's combo to give you some extra power down. And the cool thing is, like, you have Coulson and you have Cable in this list. So if your opponent is stealing your cards, you produce 2 new cards with Coulson, and then you're stealing one of their cards with Cable. So it's another good turn play right there. And you have Quinjet to discount those cards as well because they're new cards. And, of course, Quinjet with Loki is just absurdly good Because if you Loki and you get a 6-drop, it costs 5 normally, and then with Quinjet it costs 4. So it's pretty much like a Valentina early, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, which is really interesting, is we have this mill list over here. So this mill list has 1,600 games. You're playing Baron Zemo, you're playing Dr. Octopus, you're playing Red Hulk, you got Magic. But its popularity, 18% of your games you're going to be seeing a mill list right now, which is really interesting. This is the main iteration that Untap has brought up here too. So you're actually running Shadow King and you're running Shang-Chi, like I was talking about. You weren't playing a lot of that. You weren't seeing a lot of that against Surfer. But this is another just good counter deck. And your Dr. Octopus, of course, is Shang-Chi bait, because, more often than not, normally when I'm playing Dr. Octopus pulls down a Shang-Chi, and Shang-Chi absolutely rocks my Dr. Octopus, but let's say he doesn't. You got 10 power there, and you know exactly what your opponent has on the right, or left, or the middle. It's a clogged lane, and you can do whatever you want to it. And game, if it is a Shadow King, if it is a Shang-Chi, if it is something even crazier. So, like, it's really interesting to use Dr. Octopus right now, and then you can play Red Hulk on that lane or another lane. Like you maybe took out the Shang-Chi early. It gives you another opportunity to play Red Hulk wherever you'd like. But it's pretty flexible, and I think with Zemo too, you're taking away your opponent's draws. So if they don't have their combo in their hand, Zemo and like all this mill stuff just goes burr, because like you can Maximus either earlier to make them draw more cards, and then your Zemo has a higher opportunity to hit one of their higher cost cards instead of lower cost cards, because they've drawn a lot. Yondu also is taking out a lower cost card. Cable's also stealing one of their cards, so it's better for your Zemo opportunity. And you could Gladiator early as well, which also gives you a better late game Zemo. It's just really, really awesome, really, really flexible. And of course, post Infinite, we have a lot of Silky Smooth. So it's interesting post Infinite. I feel like a lot of people have been trying out Silky Smooth and haven't been having a lot of success, because it's not a super easy deck to pilot, because you have to manage your board space, you have to manage your Kraven, you have to manage your Angela. You have to make use of your Hope Summers if you want to drop your Red Hulk, or your Red Hulk may just become Shang-Chi bait. It's good to get your Vision early. So it's like not a very easy deck to learn or to play. So I think that's why the win rate and the games, everything isn't as high as it was pre-Infinite. Because at the same time, not everyone is rushing to hit Infinite right now. So we probably have a lot of players, or I know we have a lot of players that are pre-Infinite opposed to post-Infinite. So that's why the games are a little bit different right now as well. All right, moving into the new card that came out this week, which is Red Hulk. Red Hulk is super popular right now. You can see about a 33% popularity. Normally, when a new card comes out, we like to play the new card, so that's another reason why the popularity is so high. Granted, this is another card that is big, raw power, and just continually grows. There's power creep, of course, and gets a little crazier and crazier and crazier. So I do think the popularity of this card is going to get a little bit lower, but it's still one of the better cards. Still a very solid card for this month. I could probably see it getting more to like 24% from 33%. Maybe not this next week with US Agent coming out, but the patch could also change everything up, and we could see some changes there, making this card drop in popularity. The win rate is based on when this card is played, not necessarily when this card is in its deck. So that's also a really solid 56% win rate is really good for a new card. Averaging almost half a cube is really good because your opponent's going to retreat if your Red Hulk gets too big. So it's all about like snapping with consistency and everything too. And I've rated this card, I think, like a 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it's still a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's not the best card in the game. I think it gets really, really huge, and it's very flexible, which makes it even better. That's why I give it like the 4 out of 5 stars rating. So I really like that. But I think this card will die down just a little bit. Nothing crazy. Like, it's still going to be popular. But I don't think it's busted. Maybe if it warranted a change, I could see the argument, but I don't think it's like super overpowered. It's all about just managing your energy. And then, of course, the main decks you're seeing right now are Silky Smooth, and I know we were talking about Silky Smooth pre-Infinite and post-Infinite. This is all based on the latest patch pre-Infinite as well. So you have 28,000 games with Silky Smooth, and it's just winning really, really well. Not necessarily because of Red Hulk, but it's the flex spot that you put in here for your other 6 drops you had. And then in Zemo, it's another large card for you to drop down. 21,000 games with 55%. Like, both these decks are popping off. You see a lot of mill. I'm sure you guys have run into a lot of mill and Silky Smooth. And then, of course, this is another iteration of Silky Smooth. Then you have the Corvus package with Red Hulk as well. It's a great Hela card. It can get bigger than Infinite, so it's another great card to have there. And then if we look at some more decks, of course, this is based off of the most recent patch and the current location. So this is with Kamar-Taj being the hot location. If we change it just to last patch, which is what we had on the original screen, you're seeing more of the Silky Smooth. You're seeing game count with everything too. You're seeing more of the Corvus, more Corvus. an interesting Baron Zemo list. I don't know what this is. So these are just by games overall. So we're seeing a Cannonball list with Silky Smooth. We're seeing another just regular Silky Smooth, but with Captain Marvel, Hela. We have this is a Shuri Kitty list. This is the Prodigy and Shuri Enjoyer Shuri Kitty list right here. So you're buffing your kitty, and if you don't draw your kitty, your Red Hulk is the alternate line, which is really interesting. Another Hela package, but with Black Knight, which is going to be really solid. More Zemo, more Hela, more Baron, Electro ramp, Electro Sandman ramp, and you have Blade in this one actually to increase your discard redraws for Hela, or your revives, not redraws. More Hela Tribunal, Baron Zemo. You're seeing a different Hope Summers kitty package, but with Luke Cage. You're seeing it in Thanos because it's flexible in Thanos. You're seeing it in a control type list, more Hela. You're seeing it in a crazy Zoo list, it looks like. And it goes on and on. Silky Smooth, Sandman. It goes to the cozy list with She-Hulk and Sunspot and Shuri. And it just goes on and on there. So like it's a flexible card. That's what we're showcasing here. Very flexible card. Of course, some of these win rates aren't that great as we go a little bit lower into the games. But it's still a solid card nonetheless. And of course, in review, we had Sebastian Shaw, Echo, and Red Hulk in Spotlights this week, which is one of the better Spotlight weeks I think we've had, or we have this entire go-around. Not necessarily the best week. I still think the White Widow week and the Valentina week are better. And then if you don't have High Evo, the Red Guardian week, of course, is better. But this week is better than this next week coming up. If you don't have Sebastian Shaw, of course, was showcased in two of those top decks. In that Wong Hazmat / Surfer list that was great in Pre-Infinite and in Post-Infinite. Also a great Founding Fathers Quiet Council Sebastian Shaw, and a great Echo variant if you don't have Echo as well. Echo is not necessarily meta relevant or dependent at the moment, but she's still another card to have if you don't have her in your collection. And if you don't have Red Hulk, I think this is a card to have. It's going to continually be good. And if you have the resources, I would probably get Red Hulk. On Tuesday, which will be tomorrow, we have U.S. Agent Mirage Jeff. A great Jeff variant, a great Mirage variant, but I don't necessarily say this is an open week. So U.S. Agent's ability is every 4, 5, and 6 cost card in his lane ongoing gets -3 power. So the interesting thing about -3 power is it makes your big cards unshangable. So if you play a Doc Ock into a U.S. Agent lane, your Doc Ock does not get hit by Shang-Chi. So it's going to be interesting. I know Cozy mentioned using him in a negative or a Toxic Sarah control list, which could be solid. I think you can use him in Cerebro 3. I think he gets some awesome interaction alternating a Goose lane. I think it's something you could throw down maybe a little bit later to use in High Evo on your A-Bomb to be able to get A-Bomb out cheaper. Not necessarily sure it's going to be a good card. I don't think it's going to be a good card. If anything, with the cards coming out the rest of this month, this might just be a skip week. I think it's going to be, if you're wanting to stay collection complete, yeah, of course, you get him, but I don't know. If you open and you get him instead of Jeff, I think it's sad. I think like Jeff is a great card to have. If you don't have Jeff already, it's a nice Jeff variant, so I know a lot of people are going to be opening for the Jeff variant as well. But it kind of feels like a feels bad card. I wish he had stayed the 2/6. As a 2/6, it was another great Sauron card you could have had instead of playing the Lizard. But of course, you can turn this card if you're playing a lot of 4s through 6 drops over in one lane. Your U.S. Agent goes from a 2/3 to a 2/6 or to a 2/9, potentially 2/12. If it is all 6 drops in one lane, then your U.S. Agent turns into a 2/15, which more often than not, it's not going to happen, but it's a good counter to Tribunal. So if Tribunal does come up in the meta, that's really good because it affects Onslaught, it affects Tribunal, it affects Iron Man. So it's a nice little late card to play. An interesting tech card, but not necessarily a crazy good tech card. So I would suggest, if you want U.S. Agent, buy him with tokens. I really wouldn't open him for Spotlights. I think I would save your resources. If you want the Jeff, I hope you get your Jeff from the first Spotlight opposed to any of these other cards. The Mirage variant is cool, but I really hope you don't have to spend really resources on it. I'd probably skip this week overall. I'm just saying if you have an abundance of resources and you want the Jeff, I really hope you can get the Jeff. and you don't necessarily need US Agent. All right, next we're going to be going over the variants we have coming out this week, and I'm also going to talk about some of the bundles as well. So we have the Gamora and Star-Lord anime variants, which are going to be part of a bundle that is coming out today, the 8th. We also have a Dan Hip. On the 9th, we of course have the Spotlight variants, which is the Jeff, Mirage, and the US Agent. And then the Dazzler bundle. Dazzler bundle will be coming out tomorrow, Tuesday the 9th. And then we have a Black Panther variant as well as a Blueprint Sentinel variant coming out on the 10th. That is going to be Wednesday the 10th. Black Panther variant is for 1,200 gold, thank goodness, and it is an absolute banger. Same with the Sentinel. I don't know about you guys, but the Blueprint variant's freaking slap. I think they look incredible inked. I've seen a couple Quinjets. I've seen the War Machine inked. So 2 solid variants coming out on the 10th as well. On the 11th, we have a brand new Elektra bundle. I know Elektra's getting in all of these bundles right now. Maybe not a lot of people are playing Elektra, but it is a gold bundle. And I know we've been wanting some more gold bundles, of course. The value on this one's okay. We're about to go over it here in a little bit. But we do have an Elektra gold bundle coming out on Thursday the 11th. On the 12th, we actually are getting a brand new album. So it is going to be a $30.99 album. So you get the Claw, the Sandman, the Shocker, and the Killmonger. All of these are going to be 1,200 gold. The cool thing about the $30.99 album, it does give you a card back, which that's going to be awesome. And then on next Monday, we do get the brand new Omega Red and a brand new Chibi Rian Lizard variant. 700 for the Omega Red and 1,200 for the Lizard variant. Next, we're going to go over the bundles we got coming out this next week as well. So we have the Gamora and Star-Lord bundle I was talking about, which for $25 has a 165% currency value, which is really good. Normally, some of these bundles coming out are like 110, 115 when it's a good one. This one right here for $25, you're getting 2,500 gold and 1,000 credits. 2,500 gold is normally closer to like $40, roughly, a little bit less than $40. And then 1,000 gold is also roughly another like $10 to $15. So you're looking at about a $50 bundle for about $25, which is pretty good. Some pretty decent Star-Lord and Gamora variants as well. You get some Guardians of the Galaxy title, which I wish we could have actually had earlier. But this is pretty cool. Guardian of the Galaxy, so you can showcase yourself as a Guardian. 310 boosters for both cards is really good as well. So a pretty solid bundle. If you were looking at a bundle to purchase, I would say this is a good one to start with. The Dazzler bundle is also fantastic. It's got a 175% currency value, and that comes out tomorrow for $15. Another great variant we have for Dazzler, plus Ultra Anthem, which reminds me of My Hero Academia for any of my anime fans out there as well. 2,000 credits. Normally 1,500 credits is 1,200 gold, and 1,200 gold is close to $20. So 800 or 500 additional credits on top of that, which is normally 400 gold, which is like $5. So you're looking at about $25 worth of gold, plus that 500 gold. We're looking at right there, which is close to another $5. You're looking at about $30 bundle, or $35 bundle for 15, which is a pretty solid deal if you're trying to buy bundles, of course, and if you want the credits to be able to increase your collection level in order to get some more spotlight keys. To save it for the rest of the month because you're not opening any spotlights this week because you don't really need any of these cards. Maybe you want the Jeff variant, but you don't have to get US Agent. So if you do open, once again, I hope you get the Jeff on your first spotlight as well. Next bundle we have a 3,000 gold bundle. And really interesting, like I was talking about with the currency value as well, this is 115%. So you still get some value. It's not 175 like the Dazzler or 165 like the Guardians. 3,000 gold is close to about $50 worth of gold through the system that we have in store here. It's like $34.50, I believe, for $50 worth of gold, whereas like 100 is 8,000. 8,000 gold. So that's like the conversion there. And so yeah, 2,000 collector's tokens, which is nice if you need some more tokens to be able to get some of these other cards instead of having to open spotlights. 500 credits, which is the same as a day's worth of missions. Which is also a good way to look at the credits as well. So if you do a full day's worth of missions, you do from each reset, that's 450 plus your free 50 credits you get a day for just logging into the game. That is 500, so that's why it's a day of missions there. So it allows you to kind of get ahead a day in a sense with the credits there. But a decent bundle, nothing crazy. Of course, it's Electra. We don't really use Electra. I still think the Demonized Electra, of course, had better value, and it's better value in my opinion. But if you have the gold and you're not spending it on variants, maybe not a horrible purchase. That right there is going to conclude the video. Of course, this is a new series I'm trying to do. I think we maybe took a little long on going through all the decks of the week. But if it's something you enjoyed, please let me know down in the comment sections below. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please subscribe if you're new. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. And until the next time, my friends, I hope you guys have a good one. Tucker out.